In places like Indonesia, the biggest source of carbon emissions are actually coming from the loss of our forests and the burning of the peatland that is really carbon-rich ecosystem that is made up by dead organic matter accumulated over thousands of years. Globally, the agriculture, the forest, and the land use sectors actually contribute to around a fifth of the global emissions, which is significant, right? So, there's no viable pathway for us to really integrate climate change without really stopping the loss of our forests and without actually starting to protect this massive natural carbon sink that is our peatlands, our mangroves. But what's causing the loss of this critical ecosystem? Well, it's actually the productions of commodities that we use every day. Things like timber or palm oil that is so ubiquitous that it's a good chance that when you walk into the local supermarket store, almost all products on the shelf have something to do with palm oil one way or another. But it also tells you that this product, this commodity, is prevalent. It is so embedded in our daily life, in our daily economy, that's completely taken out of the production and the consumption of it. Might not be realistic at all, right? And so companies have recognized this dilemma and they have introduced policies such as no deforestation policy. But what does it is that dictates them to really make sure that the palm oil that they are buying are not contributing to the dollars lost, which is a good start. But that's only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that if you really want to have the nature positive outcome out of this, is that you have to start preemptively studying protecting the existing forests and restoring those we have lost. And here's the bad news. Forest conservation's financing is massively underfunded. The mitigation actions under the agriculture, forest, and land use are severely unfunded, and that it only receives around less than 4% of the total global climate facing. And this is the problem that we are trying to solve with mechanism called Rimba Collective. So I have a political science background as well as forest science background. I spent a majority of my career working with the governments, companies in Southeast Asia, and civil society to reduce the impact of commodity supply chain. And what Rimba Collective mechanism allow us to do is that it lets companies contribute funds and to protect and restore the natural ecosystem, proportionating to the raw natural impact. And in this case, the more they use palm oil, the more they have to contribute to this Rimba Collective Fund. And it allows us to have this scalable, large-scale, long-term financing. But it also introduced this sense of shared responsibility. And possibly the responsibility across the supply chain. And our aim is to be able to deliver the conservations around 500,000 hectares of the forest in Southeast Asia over the next 25 years, while also providing local livelihood for the communities that depended on it, and preserving the habitats and critically endangered species in the forest area. And Rimba Collective are not just a concept. So we've been doing this for 3 years now, and we're now actively financing around 220,000 hectares of the forest in Southeast Asia, but it's not where it's challenged. Finding a good investable forest conservation project is challenging. The first thing that you need to do is to identify forests and already have land management rights, or at least over the next 20 years, because we want to ensure that any kind of interventions, any kind of investment that we make to protect the forests can be sustained for over a long term. Second challenge is that some of these forests are located in a really remote location. I happened to visit one of our projects that is considered as accessible in the western coast of Sumatra. It took me a 2-hour flight to get to the province in the capital of Jakarta, and then another 12 hours car ride just to arrive at the village. And then another 4 days hike just to reach the border of the projects. Another project might require us to get on the boat, a 4-day boat ride just to arrive at the village. Imagine finding good location organizations or a local company who can deliver robust conservation, who knows the landscape and also be able to navigate a complex international certification system. Not many organizations can do that, and so we have to build an ecosystem of capable organizations that can deliver these conservations. Second challenge is that it's on the demand side. So when we are talking to companies to invest in funds like Rimba Collective, some of them are still thinking that maybe protections and the restoration of nature are not our responsibility. Or maybe we think that the conservation is cheap, putting $5 per hectare on the table is enough to call it conservation. Some of them might think that. I'm in it for the next 3 years and then I'm out. All of those are widely unrealistic. Some of these projects we have motorbikes. They have to buy cars to patrol the area, even some to build watchtowers in the middle of nowhere. Multi-watchtowers and some of projects, they need to build dams and start regulating the water table and then restoring the peatland ecosystem. And of course, all of that requires a significant amount of investments. And so, what's the ideal way toward us? Well, first, the thing that we need to change is the perception and the protection that the recognition of our natural ecosystem. That should be a charity project. It shouldn't be. The products that you use every day, maybe the shampoo you use in the morning, might not reflect the true environmental cost behind them, the forests that were lost to grow the ingredients that go in it, or the carbon that was lost will not be absorbed in the future, because the trees are no longer there. And by also linking these metrics and procurements in raw commodities directly into conservation financing, we should be able to recapture what externality costs and redirect of the conservation of a natural ecosystem. And our goal is big. Conserving and restoring 500,000 hectares of the forest is ambitious, but that's a fraction of what we need to do right now. Just to put things into perspective, the World Resources Institute, they estimated the amount of forest loss, and that can be linked to palm oil production globally, and already 6 million hectares of the forest lost. Cattle industry, that is a strategy of 45 million hectares. So again, 500,000 hectares sounds a lot, but it also a lot is ambition given to the amount of sources that we need to mobilize, and it should be seen as a starting point of what is possible. Actors across the supply chain work collectively and agree to finance the conservation and our restoration into our natural ecosystem, appropriating them into the footprint. The climate regulating function of the forest is called an ecosystem service, and I'm sure other services that you have in your life. You must be paying for that, right? So, our money, your money should not be just paying for the raw ingredients that we use every day. Our money should be able to pay for the preservation of the natural ecosystem that we are dependent on. And what we want to do is to replicate this across other supply chain, maybe the Flash Conscience Collective or Rubber Collective. And maybe only then that we might have a chance to close this financing gap and to have a real fighting chance to address the climate change. Clearest. Thank you.